You've heard the quotes. Everybody has. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That one's been around forever. Plato said something very similar. He said that the people who want power the most are usually the least fit to have it. And then there's the one we say almost casually, like it explains everything. Power changes people. We say it at work. We say it about politicians. We say it about our bosses, our managers, supervisors. Yeah, power changed him. And for a long time, I accepted that. It sounded right. But the more I watched people, real people, not headlines, the more I started to question it. Because I didn't just read about power. I worked with it. I watched it up close. I watched people who were calm and cool, reasonable, easy to talk with, change almost overnight. Not after years, not after pressure, not after scandals. Just a simple promotion. Same person, same background, new rank, and immediately something shifted. Sometimes it was subtle, maybe a sharper tone, maybe having less patience, being certain in ignorance. Sometimes it was how quickly they stopped listening. It wasn't dramatic enough to call it corruption, but it happened too often to be ignored. I noticed it most when people crossed into authority. People you grew up with, people you struggled with, people you shared personal experiences with, people who moved through the world like everybody else, who had to explain themselves, people who had to negotiate and reason before the uniform, before the title. But once they gained authority, once the uniform went on and the title changed from civilian to officer, their posture changed. Not everyone though, but enough to see a pattern. And what stood out to me was this. The uniform didn't teach them arrogance. It didn't create ego. It just gave them permission. Permission to stop questioning themselves. Permission to assume they were always right. Permission to lead with force instead of understanding. Whatever was already unresolved inside of them, their fears, their insecurity, their need to feel in control, the power they assumed turned the volume up on it. I saw the same thing being played out in politics. Remember that opposition member who resonated with the people? Who felt the pain and suffering of the constituents? Who was always accessible? Who spoke one way? They were grounded, connected. They represented the people. But when they stepped into office, when they became the power, the language changes. The distance grows. The sad issues they once criticized become the thing that they now defended. Same human, different seat. That's when those famous quotes stop feeling complete to me. Because if power itself were the problem, taking power away would fix it. But history shows us something completely different. We change leaders and somehow we keep getting the same outcomes, which tells me the problem isn't power, but what power reveals in the person that is holding it. Here's what took me a while to understand. Systems don't run on paper. They don't run on policies. They run on people. And people don't leave themselves behind when they step into authority. Every system carries the inner world of the people that is leading it. If someone is anxious, the system tightens up. If someone is insecure, the system becomes controlling. If someone doesn't trust themselves, the system stops trusting people. Not because they planned it that way. It just happens because behavior always leaks from who you are. And that is why two people can have the same job, the same rules, the same resources, and get completely different results. Same system, different inner state. Over time, systems harden around that. Personal blind spots turn into policy. Fear turns into procedure. Insecurity turns into enforcement. And eventually, the system isn't responding to reality anymore. It's protecting the inner world of the people that is running it. And that is why reform keeps disappointing us. We change rules before we change people. We replace leaders without addressing what they're leading from. So the slogans change. The language may get smoother. The optics improve. But underneath, it's the same energy. And that's why new administrations start sounding just like the old ones. That's why movements that promise freedom end up enforcing control and perpetuating the same issues that they set out to destroy. And that's because the inner posture never changed. Fear was still there. Control still felt safer than trust. So the system didn't evolve. It just reorganized the same mindset. And here's another uncomfortable truth. We live in a time obsessed with leadership development. Courses, seminars, leadership training and coaches everywhere. How to speak, how to influence, how to manage people, how to show up as a leader. We're taught how to act like leaders, but we rarely ask to understand who is doing the acting. So we train behavior without touching the person underneath it. We teach confidence without dealing with insecurity. We teach authority without healing fear. We teach presence without asking people to face their shadows. That's why so much of leadership today feels fake. Polished on the outside, but brittle on the inside. Because when pressure hits, people don't fall back on what they learned in the seminar or what they got from a manual. They fall back on who they are, on the deeper aspects of themselves that most of the times they avoid. That need for approval, the fear of being irrelevant, the need to control. These underlying issues don't disappear with a promotion or a title. They wait, and power gives them a stage. A person who hasn't met their shadow will unconsciously lead from it. Not because they're bad, but because they're unexamined. So when we say we're in a leadership crisis, I think we're missing it. I beg to differ. We don't have a leadership crisis. What we have is a self-identity crisis. A crisis of people in power who were never taught to understand themselves first. And no system will ever outgrow the inner condition of the humans that's running it. Maybe leadership should be about becoming whole before being put in charge. Being able to hold responsibility without shrinking everyone else. Being able to influence without needing to dominate. Because real leadership isn't about how many people follow you. It's about how much humanity survives in your presence. But before we talk about fixing leaders out there, let's see what our position may be on a totem pole. Here are 5 questions worth sitting with. Not to judge yourself, but to know yourself. First, ask yourself, when I'm in control, do I listen more or less? Some people gain authority and immediately stop listening. Not because they're cruel, but because they start believing that they already know everything. Listening is often the first thing power takes away. If being in charge makes you interrupt more, dismiss quicker, or explain less, that's not leadership. That's insecurity protecting itself. Secondly, ask yourself, when I have authority, do I soften or tighten? Authority should bring steadiness, not stiffness. If power makes you rigid, tense, or overly serious, there's fear underneath it. Softness doesn't mean weakness. It means you're grounded enough to stay human while holding responsibility. Third, ask yourself, how do I treat people when I don't need anything from them? This one doesn't lie. When there's no favor to ask, no advantage to gain, do you still offer respect? Or do people become invisible once they're no longer useful to you? Power reveals whether respect was genuine or just transactional. Fourth, ask yourself, does certainty makes me curious or closed? Real authority leaves room to learn. False authority defends its position at all costs. If being right matters more than understanding, leadership turns into control. Curiosity is usually the first thing that ego kills. And fifth, ask yourself, why does power appeal to me in the first place? This is the hardest one. Is it about service? Or is it about safety, validation, control, or simply being seen? None of those answers make you a bad person. But unexamined motives quietly shape decisions. Whatever power is fixing inside you will eventually show up in how you lead others. The world doesn't need stronger leaders. We've tried that. Stronger voices, stronger personalities, stronger authority, and somehow things still feel brittle. What the world actually needs are clearer humans. People who sat with themselves before being trusted with others. Because if you don't know your fears, they'll run your decisions. If you haven't faced your need for control, you label that leadership. If you haven't made peace with your insecurities, you'll project that onto everyone around you. So the future wouldn't be changed by who holds power. It will be changed by who understand themselves when they do. By people who don't need authority to feel whole. By people who don't confuse control with competence. By people who can stand the responsibility without shrinking everyone else in the process. And maybe that's the real work. Not chasing titles, not performing leadership, but becoming solid on the inside. Because when someone is steady within themselves, leadership stops being something they put on. It becomes something that people can trust. This is the sacred curriculum. Lesson complete. Now remember who you are.